Hello, welcome to Dorothy's Lockdown Diaries Day 12. It's a Sunday. I hope everyone's had a good day. It's been a nice day down here in North Devon. We've been down to the Burrows, which is near here, which is a huge stretch of sand dunes, which would be amazing if you could ride your bike in there, but sadly you can't. But still a great place for walking, and it takes you onto the beach. So if you do come down in the summer, make sure you bring some walking gear, because there's some good walking to be had as well as riding. Today, as I said yesterday, I was going to talk about riding gear, which seems to be another subject that people seem to get really stressed about, like what to wear and what to buy, what they should take on a trip or when trail riding. And to me, it all sort of comes together to equate to the same answer. I wanted to start off just by giving some context with a few things that I've just dug out the box from when I rode back from Australia, a few of the clothes that I wore on that trip. I can't find all of them, but just a few bits and bobs. Starting with, I set off in a brand new pair of Converse trainers, and this was my footwear the entire way. One shoe broke its lace, so it had a new lace in, but otherwise, one pair of Converse, 23,000 miles, not a lot of shin protection, toe protection, or anything else, but to be honest, on a 40-mile-an-hour motorcycle, a pair of Converse were perfectly good for that duration, and also they were comfortable to walk in and to hike in and to do other things in. So, you know, they were what was the perfect shoe for riding from Sydney to London on a CT 110? Pair of Converse high tops. Bit cold in the Alps, in the Himalayas, I will be honest, but a good pair of socks and that would have cured that. Trousers, I didn't wear any knee protection, elbow protection, back protection, anything. I just had a pair of skateboarding trousers that I wore day in, day out, every day on the bike. And again, you know, it was that compromise about being comfortable and warm. And when they weren't warm, I bought some extra trousers. So I bought these in India, just a pair of cotton over trousers, and wear them over the top. Somewhere I've got a set of waterproofs that was given to me by a guy who owned a bike shop in Nepal, in Kathmandu, who gave me a set of a jacket and trousers, sort of like a pinky coloured ones, because he could see I was going to get wet heading west from Nepal. So essentially, on that trip, I just rode in what I'd got, what I started with, and what I acquired along the way. And I think that's probably what's set in stone my approach to travel in general. You know, whether I'm riding a GS 1200, a Himalayan, a CRF, or a Guzzi, my approach is it's still exactly the same, in that I pretty much take what I've got and I compromise on what I buy, and I make do, and I adapt as I go along. And I think being adaptable to changing environments, like we said in yesterday's video, is the key thing, because you can't set off wearing exactly the right clothing for the conditions that you're going to encounter along the way. You know, and if it does get hot, you're going to have to buy clothes to suit that, and if it's going to be cold, you're going to have to buy clothes to climb, you know, to deal with that as well. But I guess starting from the ground up, you know, these days I wear obviously a pair of adventure boots. These are TCX Drifters. Not my favourite boot. They seem okay, but they soon let go in terms of waterproofing. So I would certainly say, you know, a pair of good waterproof socks, whether they're sealskins or one of the alternative brands, are always a good place to start. I do like, what I like about them, although they're not very waterproof, I do like the fact that they've got a nice compromise between comfort and protection. So we've still got some good shin protection, we've got some good ankle protection. They're not overly stiff, but they've got some lateral restriction to stop you breaking your leg if you fall off. But they're also comfortable to walk in. My favourite boot is again all-terrain Gore-Tex boot. About probably 4 years ago, I did an adventure boot test for Ride magazine, and I think I had about 18 pairs in total, including City Adventures and Alpine Star Toucans, the BMW Rally Pro boots, which are like an enduro boot. And for me, as an all-round boot, it was again all-terrain, which is a trials boot, but it was a waterproof trials boot, which was quite supple and soft. So obviously offered slightly less protection than maybe a City Adventure, but for an all-day wearing adventure boot, just ticked a lot more boxes. So those boots, I don't think I've got them here. I do, wait a second. So those boots, not a lot of ankle support, not an overly stiff boot, but just incredibly comfortable and usable. Really yeah, really good for travelling in. You know, I went across America in these, around Iceland in these, I did a lot of trail riding in these. And I guess you've just got to accept you're not going to have as much protection as maybe a full-on motocross or adventure boot. But, you know, it's a compromise. So yeah, the Gear and All Terrain's my favourite boot. What I would say as a word of warning is watch out for the cheap boots. You know, there's nothing wrong per se with cheap boots, but a lot of the ones in the £100, £120 price bracket seem to be the Chinese import ones that are simply rebranded by the importer, and they're not very good. You know, they're not a £120 boot. They're sort of a £60 boot, but because they've got a Western brand on them, they put them up for 120. I'm trying to think of examples. I shan't name names, but there's plenty out there, and it's almost like there's one boot design that seems to come into the country with multiple names on it, and I would watch out for them because I just don't think they're very good for the good value for money. I think you're better looking on eBay for something second hand rather than going for a brand new pair of £100 boots. I did have a pair of RST Adventures which were pretty good, but again the stitching soon came apart and things like that. So I do think with boots, if I was going to probably spend a bit more on any part of my kit, it would be my boots, because the difference between a cheap pair and a good pair is sort of night and day. The Gains I think about £240, £250, but they lasted me 4 years of heavy use and were just a brilliant boot. And so, is it worth finding an extra £150 to get a good boot first time round? I think so. Because in terms of a helmet, yes, I've got a Tour X4, which was a sort of a gift from Arai, because I was doing some magazine work. And I mean, you know, what you need to know with a lot of the guys and people doing kit reviews and vlogs and journalists is that, you know, a lot of manufacturers will give the kit to be assessed, to be worn in photos. If it's a vlog, to be worn and almost the vlogger is the promotional arm of the company. So sometimes it means that people will say good things about a product even though it's maybe not as good as it's saying it is. So I was given a Tour X4 simply because I was doing some magazine work and they like to see some of their product in the photos. But in fairness, ever since we motocrossed as a kid, when we were sort of 6-7 years old, I always wore an Arai. We weren't rich, but the helmet was the aspect of the kit that my dad never skimped on. You know, he said if you've got a £10 head, wear a £10 helmet. And so I guess even if I was spending my own money, I'd still splurge on something that I felt was good quality, comfortable all day, and that's what I find with the Tour X4. But it's £500, and there's plenty of good helmets out there for sort of £200. And so again, it's a compromise. What I would say with helmets is try and get down to the helmet shop and try as many on as possible, because even like an Arai at £500, some people can't get on with it, they find it uncomfortable, so you've just wasted £500. Whereas they might try on a Premier or a Nolan or something and they find it very comfortable and it's only £200 or £150. So I think with kit, especially the helmet, you've got to try it on, because it's. But equally, then it's trying it on for 20 minutes or 10 minutes in the shop is not the same as wearing it for 2 hours straight on a bike trip, and then 12 hours straight on a bike trip, and then day in day out for 3 weeks on a bike trip. So until really you've done some miles in a particular brand of helmet, you're never really going to know. So there is a bit of a luck of the draw, which is why once you've found a helmet that suits you or a brand that suits you, I think there's a tendency to stick with it. I don't particularly worry about sun visors and all that sort of stuff. I like a peak helmet because it keeps the sun off my eyes. The Tour X4 is actually quite noisy, but one crucial aspect of long distance riding is a set of earplugs, which is something I never factored in or respected that necessity until I got tinnitus. And once you got tinnitus, you think, why did I do all those miles without earplugs? And I think what caused it for me, I rode to the Alps and back in a week on a Tracer 700 with a terrible screen. I can't remember what helmet, but it wasn't an Arai at that time. And no earplugs, and I think just the constant booming it eventually gave me tinnitus. In terms of jackets, you know, people agonise over jackets, they really, really, really do. Now, when I come back from Australia, I didn't have any shoulder protection, elbow protection, I just had, I can't remember even what jacket it was just something. But now, this is a Revit. Again, I was given this jacket, so I kind of want to be kind to it. But I've got to be honest, this is a £400 jacket, but it's crap. It's crap because, like so many adventure jackets, it's the interior liner system. So you've got the outside, which is your main jacket, which carries your protection and your armour, and then the inside, the middle layer, is your waterproofing liner that you zip into it, and then inside of that is a quilted liner. So effectively you've got a three-piece jacket, and the good thing is it's flexible. So if it's hot, if it's hot and dry, you can take out the quilted liner and the waterproof liner. If it's cold and wet, you can put those back in. The problem with them ultimately is that, and it's especially the case with this Revit one, is the outer has to wet out before the middle waterproof layer kicks in. So, which is fine if you're on a 1 hour commute or something and you can hang your jacket up to dry in the airing cupboard that evening. But if you're sleeping in a tent and your entire outer jacket is sopping wet with water, it's going to be very cold and very wet to put on in the morning. And so it's just a terrible piece. Whoever designed the three-piece system, as it is, for motorcyclists, I don't think they ever ride a motorcycle. And they certainly don't do it in the capacity of travel, because it's just the worst system. The waterproofing layer should be on the outside. I mean, it makes sense. Maybe that's too simple. Maybe it's, I don't know, too straightforward to concept. But, I love it as a jacket. I like the fit, I like the style, I like everything about it. But it's totally useless as a all-weather motorcycling jacket. I can understand why people pay £1,000 for the laminate jackets, whether it be a Klim or who's the other one? There's a few, Matong, another, blooming hell, what's it? No, Rucker. So Rucker's a really good expensive jacket, and it's laminate. Laminate means that the water doesn't penetrate the fabric, therefore the jacket itself always stays dry, and that therefore does away with the three-piece or the three-layer liner. So if you're going to spend £1,000, I kind of think that's probably worth it. If you can afford that sort of money, then those kind of jackets probably represent really good value. But to me, these in the mid-range, which rely on the three-liner system, say you're paying £400 for this or £450, I think you've wasted £200. I think you'd be much better getting a £200 jacket, and then what I do, whether I'm trail riding or going on a trip, I just buy a £30 Gore-Tex ex-military. I think this is an ex-Navy jacket from an army surplus store, and I just carry it with me, and when it rains I put it over the top, or when it's cold I put it over the top. Because the beauty of these jackets, something like this, is it's longer in length, so A, it stops you getting the draft between your trouser and your jacket, and B, it's higher in the collar, so it stops you getting the wind, around your neck and the cold around your neck. So this to me is a far better solution, and it also just shows, I think, just how much the manufacturers don't understand or don't listen to what a motorcycling adventure jacket needs to be. Because this, adventure jacket, it's short cut, it's not a long cut in the body, and it's a short cut in the neck. So it leaves a lot of your body exposed, and it's exactly the same with the Oxford laminate jacket that came out a few years ago, which I did buy and tried it, but because it's £250 for a laminate jacket, which is good value, but it was too short in the body and too short in the neck. So even there with a laminate jacket, I still needed to carry this. So I may as well have saved my money, wore my old jacket, and just wore a waterproof cagoule over the top. And this means that when you're camping on an evening, your main jacket, this one stays perfectly dry, and this, if it's Gore-Tex, should dry very quickly and very easily. And it means if you get out your tent in the morning, you're starting dry. And the same principle really transfers through with trousers. So these are an old pair of BMW trousers that somebody gave me, and I've been wearing these as my main trousers for the last 3 years or so. I like them because they've got hip protection and knee protection. I think hip protection is actually really important. I was riding with someone the other day who just had a low speed, low side, and went down on the hip and bruised the hip. I mean, they didn't break anything or injure themselves badly, but just a bit of hip protection. I think your hip is generally one of the first things to hit the floor, so it makes perfect sense to me. They were probably once waterproof, and you could put a waterproof solvent on them to make them better, or a waterproof coating, or you could buy you spend a lot of money on laminate trousers, or just go to the mountain warehouse shop or whatever, Blacks, Millets, and these are just regatta, 25 quid, put them over the top. I mean, you could spend, if they were motorbike waterproof trousers, they'd be 40 quid. But because they're just walking over waterproof trousers, they're 25 quid. And I think the problem is that motorcycle gear has just become criminally expensive, because I think the manufacturers think that motorcyclists are rich or have got a ton of surplus cash, when, you know, most times, even myself, you know, you're trying to get the best value out of the kit you can afford. Yes, I've been lucky, I've got a few bits given to me for free, but most of the other stuff I buy, and I don't want to spend a lot of money on kit that underperforms. So for me, I'd rather spend 25 quid on that, 30 quid on that, 60 quid to make myself waterproof, and whatever I wear underneath of that, it doesn't really matter. So if I was going around the world tomorrow, or going trail riding for the day, pretty much my kit is identical. I wear my adventure boots that were all day comfortable, that I respected were a compromise between comfort and safety. I would wear a helmet that was all day comfortable, whatever that happened to be, with earplugs. And I would wear riding kit that necessarily wasn't the best, but it had basic protection, and I knew if it rained I was going to stay dry. Style and fashion and branded names are kind of further down the list of attributes. I think last but not least, a backpack. Now, some people will swear by backpacks. I can't stand a backpack personally. I wear them if I'm going out for a day on the trails and I want to carry a puncture repair kit and things like that, you know, basic stuff. But to tour in a backpack, I think it's just the worst thing ever. You feel constricted. If you want to take off a jacket, you're first got to take off your backpack. They're heavy, and I think they start to slump on your shoulders. So I would say, don't make a backpack part of your touring kit, because I think you'll regret it. I think you're better with a tank bag or another tail pack, or just cutting down on what you take. So that's it. Motorcycle clothing, what do you need for adventure? Basically, you need what you've got, and then just adapt it slightly. You know, so it's a bit like yesterday, we talked about the sleeping bag. If you've not got a 4-season sleeping bag, then buy a sleeping bag liner to make it a 4-season sleeping bag. Save yourself the money. Same with the riding kit. If you've not got an entirely waterproof jacket, spend 30 quid on something that is waterproof, put it over the top. You know, it stands to reason. Army surplus stores are fantastic. You'll get some really good gear from them. Look for stuff online. Go down to your local surplus shop. You will probably have one nearby to you, but they sell all sorts of stuff, and you can get some really good salopette overalls. You can get some really solid rubberized ones that I think the fishermen use, and it's going to keep you dry. You know, I know people pay a lot of money for the performance of waterproofing versus the breathability of Gore-Tex. Say, you know, you'll pay a lot of money for that. Same with the laminate stuff. The reason you're spending £1,000 on a rucker jacket or more is because it's not only waterproof but also breathable. Obviously, if you spend £20 on a pair of rubberized trousers, you aren't going to get that breathability. But that's again where it's a compromise. I think that's it. You know, I just to say, I'm just thinking, you say you're going to cross America, if you're in a hotter climate, obviously you can get mesh gear, which is pretty good. But again, it could rain and you're wearing your mesh gear and you're going to get soaking wet. So always the essential part of my packing list for any trip, wherever I go, is some waterproofs that are going to do the job. That's it. Tomorrow is Monday, and I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. I'm going to try and edit some footage from the posted trip across Australia, because that was a brutal trip. Beautiful scenery, rugged scenery through the heart of the outback on 9 postie bikes, east coast or west coast, and not everyone made it. So on that note, have a great Sunday. Catch you later. Cheers. Bye.